Have you ever found yourself in a crowded room, surrounded by people, yet feeling utterly alone? Not because you dislike the people, but because a quiet part of you senses that the conversations and interactions are superficial, a performance that feels hollow. If you've ever felt this strange disconnect, this yearning for solitude not out of misanthropy but from a deep, intuitive sense that life's truths lie elsewhere, then you're at the very heart of Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy. Schopenhauer, often labeled the philosopher of pessimism, didn't just tolerate solitude, he revered it. For him, the rejection of social life wasn't a flaw in the intelligent mind, it was its natural consequence. He argued that intelligent people see through the veil of ordinary human interactions. They recognize the superficiality of small talk, the performative nature of social rituals, and the endless dance around truth that never quite touches it. To the intelligent person, this isn't merely boring. It's deceptive. Life is short, time is precious, and to waste it in what feels like a constant, insincere performance is unbearable. This isn't an argument against human connection itself. Instead, Schopenhauer was a powerful advocate for authenticity. He believed that most social interactions are driven not by love, curiosity, or genuine connection, but by ego. People seek to appear witty, superior, desirable, or important. For a deeply intellectual and introspective person, this constant performance becomes exhausting and inauthentic. The intelligent mind sees social life as a stage where everyone plays a scripted role. The more aware you become of the script, the harder it is to keep pretending it's real. Schopenhauer's profound observation was that, the more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. In other words, the more shallow you're thinking, the more comfortable you are with a surface-level life. But for those who think deeply, who question existence, contemplate suffering, and grapple with mortality, ordinary conversation becomes a kind of noise that distracts from the deeper truths. The louder the inner signal, the more intolerable the external noise becomes. Solitude, the habitat of the awakened mind. According to Schopenhauer, solitude isn't about loneliness, it's about being whole. He argued that the intelligent mind is most truly itself when it's alone, not because it hates others, but because it no longer needs them to feel complete. Solitude is the space where the mind can think freely, read deeply, and create meaning without interruption. The intelligent person doesn't reject social life because they can't handle it, they reject it because they've outgrown it. They've glimpsed something more sacred, the inner world. Schopenhauer believed that most people fear solitude because they fear themselves. To be alone is to confront the unfiltered truth of your own mind, and for many, that's a terrifying prospect. But the intelligent person, he claimed, eventually learns to love that confrontation. Turning inward is the beginning of a genuine journey, not one of status or social climbing, but of self-discovery. This journey, while solitary, is never empty. Schopenhauer, who lived much of his life in self-imposed isolation, saw that the majority of people live outwardly, seeking validation and distraction. But the intelligent person begins to live inwardly, seeking understanding, coherence, and peace. Solitude, for Schopenhauer, is not a punishment, it's a privilege, a sacred space where the mind can converse with itself, where the soul can breathe, and where the illusions of society fall away, allowing something real to emerge. The burden of awareness, why intelligence and suffering are inseparable. If solitude is the natural habitat of the intelligent mind, then suffering is its inevitable companion. Schopenhauer declared that to know deeply is to suffer deeply. This isn't because intelligence makes life worse, but because it reveals life more honestly. The intelligent person is, in a sense, burdened with an awareness that most people never reach. They see the absurdity, the impermanence, and the constant, insatiable will that drives human existence. Once you see this clearly, it's impossible to unsee it. Schopenhauer placed suffering at the very center of life. He believed our existence is driven by an irrational, blind force he called the will, a relentless craving and striving that can never be fully satisfied. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place, creating an endless cycle of longing and frustration. Most people live this cycle as just life, but the intelligent person recognizes the pattern, and what often follows is a profound sense of despair. This is why intelligence and suffering so often walk hand in hand. The clearer we understand the nature of the world, the more difficult it becomes to find comfort in its illusions. Schopenhauer knew that in the solitude of the awakened mind, one must confront the raw pain of existential suffering, the heaviness that comes not from a specific event, but from the awareness that everything is fleeting, that joy is temporary, and that even our greatest achievements will be forgotten. This is not dysfunction or depression, it is clarity. But here's where Schopenhauer offers a path forward: the very awareness that causes suffering can also lead to liberation. Once we see that the will is the source of our pain, we can begin to detach from it. We can say no to the constant chase for pleasure and status and instead seek inner stillness. Your suffering isn't a sign that something is wrong with you, it's a sign that you are transcending the trivial, the shallow, and the false. Pain, in this sense, is the price of wisdom. The intelligent mind must pass through suffering as gold passes through fire. It is purified, stripped of illusion, and made real. Detachment, the ultimate rebellion. Schopenhauer saw that a quiet revolution happens not in the streets, but in the soul of an awakened individual. It begins with the realization that most of what people chase, recognition, approval, influence, doesn't truly matter. To be truly free, one must detach not from life, but from the illusions that society worships. This detachment is a profound form of freedom. Schopenhauer viewed the crowd not as evil, but as blind, guided by instinct and the will. The crowd demands conformity, pressuring you to sacrifice your inner world for outer validation. The intelligent person, however, sees this for what it is, a constant performance. And once you see the dance, you have two choices: join in and lose yourself, or step away and find yourself. This is not apathy. It's a deliberate refusal to let your identity be dictated by the opinions of others. It's the radical act of choosing your own values, your own pace, and your own path. In a society addicted to attention and constant stimulation, this kind of independence is nothing short of a rebellion. The crowd may chase status symbols, but the wise seek inner harmony. The crowd may find excitement in gossip, but the wise find peace in silence. The crowd may define success by how many know your name, but the wise define it by how deeply you know yourself. This is the ultimate rebellion, to become so still that the world's noise no longer moves you. The sacred power of solitude. At the core of Schopenhauer's philosophy is a truth that modern society fears: solitude is not emptiness, it is essence. In a world obsessed with connection, those who withdraw are often misunderstood. They are labeled as strange or broken. But Schopenhauer saw them as the most alive on the inside. Solitude, when chosen, becomes a crucible for wisdom. It is not a retreat from life, it is a return to its source. When we are constantly surrounded by others, we are always adapting, shifting our thoughts and actions to fit the environment. Over time, we lose the shape of our true self. Solitude interrupts this pattern, creating a sacred space where the self can no longer hide behind roles. The highest minds are solitary not because they dislike people, but because they crave truth, which is rarely found in noise. It is found in stillness, in thought, in nature, and in the silent confrontation with one's own mind. Schopenhauer's most famous quote on the subject states, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free." This is a radical statement, as we are often taught that freedom is about options and movement. Schopenhauer flips this idea, arguing that real freedom is inner freedom, the freedom from needing others to validate your existence, the freedom to think without censorship, and the freedom to live without performance. Solitude isn't meant to be a permanent exile. It is a place to return to again and again to recalibrate and remember who you are. Once you've touched that inner stillness, you carry it with you even into the noise of the world. You become someone who can stand in a crowd and not be lost in it, someone who can engage without being consumed. That's the true power of solitude. It doesn't just change how you are when you're alone. It changes who you are when you return. So, what might you discover if you allowed yourself to be truly alone, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually? Because in the silence of solitude, Schopenhauer would argue, we don't lose ourselves. We finally find ourselves, and in that finding, we begin to live not as products of the world, but as creators of our own meaning. Conclusion: choosing solitude over the stage. The world will always try to convince you that life's meaning lies in participation, in being visible, social, and engaged in the endless parade of events, opinions, and performances. It will tell you that to withdraw is to waste life, that to step back is to fall behind. Yet Schopenhauer's philosophy quietly dismantles this narrative. He reminds us that stepping away is not a retreat from life, it is a movement toward its essence. The intelligent rejection of social life, then, is not an act of arrogance or cynicism. It is a choice born from clarity. Once you see the machinery behind human interaction, the posturing, the status games, the unspoken competitions, it becomes difficult, even impossible, to engage without a sense of falseness. And while others may find comfort in the noise, the awakened mind seeks the quiet in which truth can be heard. Schopenhauer understood that this choice is costly. It will set you apart. It will make you a stranger in rooms where you once felt at home. Friends may misinterpret your distance as coldness. Family may see your silence as detachment. Society, which thrives on conformity, will brand your absence as failure. But Schopenhauer would say that these are the very signs you are moving toward freedom. Because what you are rejecting is not humanity itself, but the counterfeit version of it. You are rejecting the conversations that say nothing, the alliances built on convenience, the smiles that hide calculation. In doing so, you are not becoming less human, you are reclaiming the most human thing of all, the ability to be alone with your own mind and find it enough. The courage to stand alone. Solitude demands courage because it strips away the scaffolding of constant reassurance. When you step away from the crowd, you no longer have the comfort of being reflected back to yourself through others' eyes. You must look directly into your own reflection. Unfiltered, unflattering, and entirely yours. This confrontation is the beginning of all self-knowledge. In the silence of your own company, there is nowhere to hide from your fears, your flaws, or your doubts. Many people run from this because it is uncomfortable. But Schopenhauer would argue that discomfort is the price of authenticity. Only by facing yourself honestly can you begin to live without masks. The courage to stand alone also frees you from the tyranny of opinion. When your worth is no longer tied to the applause or disapproval of others, you become untouchable in a way that social success can never grant. This is the quiet, almost invisible power of solitude. It makes you independent not just in body, but in spirit. Suffering as a teacher. To reject social life in the Schopenhauerian sense is not to escape suffering, it is, paradoxically, to meet it more directly. When you are alone, you cannot distract yourself as easily from the fundamental truths of existence, that all joy is temporary, that all striving is endless, and that all life moves toward its end. But Schopenhauer's genius lies in showing that this confrontation is not meant to destroy you, it is meant to awaken you. Suffering, when faced without distraction, reveals the patterns of the will that keep you trapped in cycles of craving. You see clearly that much of what you once chased was hollow. This realization is painful at first, but it carries within it the seed of liberation. By accepting life's impermanence and its unavoidable hardships, you free yourself from the compulsion to cling. Detachment is not indifference, it is clarity. It is the recognition that your peace cannot depend on a world that is inherently unstable. The inner republic. In solitude, the intelligent person builds what could be called an inner republic, a self-sustaining world of thought, creativity, and meaning that does not collapse when the outer world changes. In this inner space, your values are not voted on by the crowd. Your worth is not measured in likes, invitations, or recognition. You live according to principles you have tested in the fire of your own reflection. This inner republic is not isolationist. You may still enter the marketplace of life when you choose, but you do so on your own terms. You are no longer a citizen of the crowd, you are a sovereign visitor. Your interactions with others become deliberate, grounded in sincerity rather than need. You can connect deeply without being consumed, and you can walk away without resentment. The gift you bring back. The paradox of solitude is that, in rejecting the constant performance of social life, you often return to it better equipped to give something real. A mind that has spent time in stillness returns with sharper insight. A soul that has wrestled with its own fears returns with greater compassion. Schopenhauer never argued for permanent exile from humanity. Rather, he saw solitude as a necessary retreat, like a monk returning from the cloister with wisdom to share. In this way, the rejection of social life becomes not just a personal act of preservation, but a gift to others. You stop adding to the noise and instead offer something of substance. Freedom beyond applause. The deepest reward of Schopenhauer's solitude is freedom, the kind that exists entirely apart from circumstance. You are no longer a slave to the shifting tides of public favor. You no longer bend yourself into shapes to fit the moment. You stand, unshaken, in the knowledge that your life is your own to live, and your mind is your own to guide. This freedom is invisible to most. It does not announce itself with status symbols or outward success. It is felt in the quiet confidence of knowing that you do not need the world to approve of you for your life to matter. It is in the ability to wake in the morning and choose your day without fear of disappointing the invisible jury of public opinion. The final word. In the end, the intelligent rejection of social life is less about turning away from people and more about turning toward truth. It is about valuing depth over distraction, clarity over conformity, and freedom over performance. Schopenhauer leaves us with a challenge, to stop measuring the worth of our days by how many people we please, and instead measure them by how honestly we have lived with ourselves. So if you find yourself feeling out of place in the crowd, if you crave the quiet more than the conversation, take heart. You are not withdrawing from life, you are approaching it from its most honest angle. You are stepping off the stage not to disappear, but to see the play for what it is. And in that space beyond applause, beyond noise, you may discover the rarest of victories, to live a life that belongs entirely to you.